What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. This is the host, Ryan Thomas, live on the mic, talking about the next topic of discussion. It's been quite a while since I've been on the Spreaker side of things with the Thomas Take. I've been uploading videos to the YouTube channel. UFC 213 was successful. The predictions for that event on July 8th, excuse me. The Bellator MMA preview and prediction, very successful. And then obviously the Mayweather-McGregor talk, very, very successful as well. So thank you all for watching those videos on all the sites that I promoted those videos on. I really appreciate it. And now I want to talk about a topic that has kind of been on my mind for quite some time. And it's a dynamic that has kind of came and went, kind of come and gone, only for it to return. And that is MMA legends deciding that they want to continue to fight rather than staying retired. Few that come to my mind, obviously, most recently BJ Penn in his appearance versus Yair Rodriguez. Yair, the next big thing in the UFC featherweight division, heralded as such going into that fight. BJ Penn, the illustrious legend that he is, and that fight did not go well for BJ Penn. There's other cases of it as well. Ken Shamrock fighting inside the Bellator cage versus Royce Gracie. And then there are the rumblings of Chuck Liddell, the former UFC light heavyweight champion, thinking about coming back, returning to the octagon. Randy Couture threw his hat in the ring, so to speak, as far as a late replacement for this Bellator NYC event, in the event that Wanderlei Silva does not fight Chael Sonnen. That is Bellator's backup plan. So you have a lot of fighters saying that, yeah, I'll come back, I want to continue to fight. And this is concerning on multiple levels. The reason why I would say it's concerning is number one, these fighters are old, they're past their prime, they're not what they once were. The sport has passed them by. The sport of MMA is completely different than what it was, let's just say, even 3 years ago. Let alone 4 years ago. 4 years ago, UFC 167 in November, that was the last time Georges St-Pierre fought inside the octagon, the illustrious longtime welterweight champion. He is thinking of coming back. And that's been, in the wings for a while. But I had just recently watched UFC 167. Georges St-Pierre fought Johnny Hendricks. Robbie Lawler fought Rory McDonald for the first time. Chael Sonnen fought Rashad Evans. Tyron Woodley fought Josh Koscheck. That was 4 years ago, the 20th year event for the UFC. And a lot from that event is different compared to today. Conor McGregor wasn't a ranked fighter. The UFC didn't have Reebok. John Jones was the pound-for-pound number one face of MMA, of the UFC. Wow. I mean, that really, it just goes to show you that time does change things. And if these guys want to come back, hopefully they do not go the BJ Penn route and say, kicking ass is timeless, and choose to fight Yair Rodriguez. Hopefully they're going to go in there and fight against guys that are at the later half of their career, like the Chael Sonnen route, where Chael went to Bellator and fought Tito Ortiz. Chael went to Bellator and is now fighting Wanderlei Silva this Saturday. Hopefully they go that route, because going that route is much safer on the body than fighting guys that are in their actual fighting prime. Is it a circus act? Is it a joke? Not necessarily. It can be easily made fun of, as Rocky Balboa versus Mason the Line Dixon. Why did they call this an exhibition? So they wouldn't have to call it an execution. Or Rocky's in his 60s and Mason Dixon's the champ. Obviously that's a movie, but that was a reincarnation of the George Foreman story, where George Foreman decided to come back as a heavyweight boxer. well beyond his prime, but he did some decent things in there. So if fighters have the opinion that they are not done, they do have a few more left in the tank, should they continue? I would say yes, but why do they continue? That is the real question. Do they continue because they want the limelight? Maybe, quite possibly. Do they continue because they feel as if they still have stuff left in the tank, as I alluded to just moments ago? Yes. Most importantly, do they want to fight because they don't have money? And sadly, unfortunately, the answer to that question is yes. Chuck Liddell, rumored to be coming back and coming back to Bellator. Chuck Liddell, it was announced that he was fired by the UFC in a high-ranking brand ambassador-like role with the UFC, where WME, IMG decided to cut the contracts of Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes. And Matt Hughes, obviously it's well known that he is in some pretty bad shape right now. He had a very bad accident where his vehicle was hit by a train. And I don't really know the particulars of the accident, but I do know that he is still in the hospital. His sister just released a statement yesterday stating that he is fighting. He's doing better than what they thought he would be, given the circumstances. Very sad story, very sad situation. Who knows, what will happen? But obviously, pray for the guy. He's a good guy. One of the reasons why mixed martial arts is where it is today. There's no doubt about it. Chuck Liddell, back to Chuck Liddell though. Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes were both looking for possible returns because these guys only know fighting. They only know promoting fighting because that's what they did as fighters, and that's what they've done in their office positions with the UFC. So when they're relieved from their office positions inside the UFC, the only thing that these guys really know how to do is fight. And that is a real shame. I remember watching a documentary on Versus back in the day with Ken Shamrock, and Ken Shamrock was basically playing host to the cameraman inside his RV. He didn't even own a house. I remember Uriah Faber fighting in the WEC, boasting about a $4,000 performance of the night bonus. $4,000. He's like, I made $4,000 for my performance of the night bonus. I made $15,000 to show up. I made $3,000 to win. So all in all, it was a $25,000 night. And that was when he was the champion of the WEC. I believe that was when he beat Dominic Cruz for the first time. Because the fights weren't on pay-per-view. There was no pay-per-view points. WEC didn't get into pay-per-view until Jose Aldo came along. So, fighter pay is a huge problem inside the sport of mixed martial arts. And that is more known now than ever. Due to the fact that Conor McGregor is fighting Floyd Mayweather for $100 million. Conor McGregor has made upwards of $50 million as an MMA fighter. Now that means that is not from the UFC. That is fight purses, endorsements, appearances. That he has received that much money. In terms of fight purses, it's probably around 15 to 20 million, maybe, in terms of fight purses. So these guys, even the highest paid guy that's ever been in the sport, Conor McGregor, has not made that much money, which is why he's going to a sport where there is more money in boxing and signing on the line to fight Floyd Mayweather for $100 million. So when you have your highest paid guy saying, I'm going to go fight a boxer who has made more than enough money into his 40s, is set for life, but we all know Floyd Mayweather outside the ring, he has spending habits and gambling habits as well. He says, why not one more payday? That will do me some good. So Conor says, all right, and then they make the fight. So for the biggest financial moneymaker in the sport of mixed martial arts to go to another sport to make more money, that just means that still, although Conor has made a lot of money inside the sport of MMA, for the sport of MMA, it's still not nearly as much as what boxers make. Ryan Bader was talking with one of my favorite media personalities in general in sports, Ariel Helwani, and he illustrated how the UFC broke down sponsorship pay in comparison to Bellator. He makes 4 times as much in Bellator in terms of sponsors in comparison to the sponsorship deal that the UFC had with Reebok and the way Reebok was broken down in terms of tenure inside the UFC. The more tenure you had, or whether you're a champion in the UFC, you made more money. So Ryan Bader fought very often inside the UFC octagon. I believe he fought over 15 fights inside the UFC octagon, and it was still 4 times less than what Bellator pays him. So let's put that in perspective. I mean, $25 compared to $100. That's really, I mean, that's really it. 25 grand compared to 100 grand. And I expect the trend, that is the main marketing ploy of Bellator, to bring in fighters that have the desire to have their own sponsors. So guys like Chuck Liddell, who are 47, 48 years old, that want to come back and get a big payday, they can get it. They can get that payday for 15 minutes of work at the most. So if someone told me for 15 minutes, you'll get paid, let's just say 100 G's, 200 G's, 300 G's, you'll get full sponsorships that could be in the range of 100 to 150,000. You know, I'm sure Chuck Liddell would get a big payday to come out of retirement, and for the name that he brings, and for the fact that Bellator needs as many names as possible. But for all intents and purposes, this is a real issue, that fighters that are well beyond their prime are willing to put their health on the line because they never made the Conor McGregor payday. That money wasn't there yet. That money is barely there now. Along the way, before Conor, there were guys like GSP, guys like Anderson Silva, guys like Brock Lesnar, who made big bucks, multi-million-dollar fighters. Ronda Rousey made $3 million for 48 seconds of work in a fight that she lost. Chuck Liddell's highest payday was probably around $200,000, $300,000. Maybe. His era was not the era where money was in the sport, but he was one of the main guys that brought the sport to where it is today. No doubt about that. As I said about Matt Hughes, and I want to say this again, prayers for Matt Hughes. Really sad story. Hopefully he can get through. That'd be a real shame if he is not the same Matt Hughes as he once was, or if something, if he never comes out of this, it'd be a real sad story. So that's my take on MMA legends coming out of retirement and fighter pay, and how I believe they are linked, heavily linked together. And why do I feel they are heavily linked? Reason why these fighters that are legends that helped build the sport never made the money that guys like GSP and Conor McGregor and Anderson Silva and John Jones and Ronda Rousey never made that much money. Sage Northcutt has probably made more money in his last couple fights than Chuck Liddell did in half of his career. And Sage Northcutt has been an underachiever. So that's my take. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Take care and enjoy Saturday night's fights. Bellator NYC, June 24th. Chael Sonnen will step back into the cage versus Vanderlei Silva, and Fedor Emelianenko returns to the cage to take on Matt Mitrione.